Time is money is something everyone says. But if you stop and think about it, as a standalone unit of measurement, time itself is not quantifiable with a monetary designation. Sure, a watch sitting in a display case is worth money. What about the seconds it's counting? Do they have any value before someone owns the watch? What we really should be saying is my time is worth money. It seems simple. You have a certain amount of knowledge, skill, and experience performing a task or service that others do not. It takes time, so it has value and should be billed as such. Your time is worth money, but how much money? There are formulas, calculations, and considerations to determine an hourly rate. But is there more to it than that? Do we stop ourselves from getting the true value of our services based on hidden subconscious motivations? Is understanding what we value the key to understanding the value of our work? Let's find out.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by Consultwebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that eats like a meal. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community about the latest in personal and business development. I am your co-host, Jake Sanders, and taking a sabbatical from his Rhodes Scholar Tour of Prague, the eminent PPC wizard, Paul Julius, joins us from across the pond. How are you, Professor?
Dropping knowledge, my friend. Dropping knowledge like I drop rhymes.
And you got chalk dust on you got elbow patches on your dinner jacket. You're so cool.
You got to go the whole way, man. I mean, you got to go the whole way. Tweed, glasses,
pipe.
That's right.
A bubble pipe.
Bubble pipe. Yeah. On the show today, we hit the hot takes buffet with an article from Clio.com on how lawyers establish their rates. We interview the true worth expert, Vanessa Ugatti, and find out how lawyers can charge what they're really worth. And as always, we put Vanessa on the spot with the insidious 10 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the hot takes buffet.
The article today is from Clio.com. It's called How to Calculate Your Hourly Rate. This article is really great. I thought it had really simple steps on how to calculate your costs, what salaries are, like, what does it cost to keep the lights on? You found something really interesting in this article, Paul.
The one that jumped out to me was when they said that they're talking about the value of legal service. And it said, according to Above the Law, rate pressure from clients is a challenge for 21% of small firms. I mean, think of that. That's, almost a quarter of small firms feel like they're getting leaned on by clients saying you cost too much. Why should I pay this much? Mm-hmm. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine having to debate something like that.
That's why having Vanessa on and having someone who helps people discover why you're charging, because a lot of people back away from it's too expensive. They'll probably reduce their fees or overwork, to really, really earn the fee. But that's a recipe for destruction almost. We were talking about it later that a lot of businesses fail because they don't start from the idea that you need to be compensated for your effort. They think it'll happen later. Oh, we're going to make a whole bunch of money later. But 8 out of 10 of them never get to later.
There is no later. And I think, you said it, that you have to be compensated, and not just compensated like we got paid, so now everybody can get paid. You need to get paid regularly, because if that's not working, you can't be stressing out about how you're going to pay your bills if your business's bills don't get paid. That needs to get off the table. Instead of saying, okay, everybody at the firm gets paid biweekly, right? So every other week, everybody gets paid except me. Like, in order to make sure that's covered, I'll take my money out after we get paid. So I might make a percentage or whatever. I think that's a dangerous mindset. I think that it's okay to have bonuses or, different grades or whatever. But I think having a base salary, is really necessary, because it's part of how you calculate your hourly rate, right? I mean, you need to figure, like, this is my salary, my administrative staff, the electric bill, the rent
Right.
for the office. Like that needs to be in there.
Yeah. I think it's a recipe for burnout. I think it's a recipe for distraction, and people's effort for what they do for the rate changes on the way they perceive what the rate is worth. So a lot of people might be undercutting their efforts because, hey, I'm just doing what I'm getting paid for. Or I'm only going to get this, but I'm going to work so hard beyond the price. It seems like it's a recipe for disaster. Definitely. There's something about owning a business that says, you kids eat, I'll eat later, and then
Well said. Yeah.
There's something like that. It's like my kids have all the finest shoes, but you have no shoes. That's nice, but you're not going to be there to hold the business up for these kids. So ultimately you're letting the kids down.
Yeah. You become the business then. If you can't set these things up, that's it. And I think part of it too, going back to the talk about rate pressure from clients, a lot of times what happens is that, people are arguing, well, how long is that going to take? How long? Well, that's, or if you send them an itemized bill, they're going to push back and say, well, you charged me X amount for a 10-minute phone call or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's difficult for people to communicate the experience. And this article talks about that experience is something that you can use to explain about why your rates are so high, but proficiency and efficiency do not detract from your business. If you can do better work faster, that doesn't mean that you have to do more of it because now it takes you less time.
And that's the reason why Vanessa's interview is so amazing, because it isn't just these logical, calculated, kind of mathematical decisions. What goes into deciding these things and also defending your rates is a subconscious belief in who you are and what you're worth. And I think that was the most eye-opening part of our interview. And you're about to hear it. Here we go.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
I met Tanner, who works for Consultwebs, on a plane on the way back from Key West, Florida. And I'd just been thinking that I needed to do some more marketing for my law firm. So when he told me that he worked for Consultwebs, I was super excited. From the beginning till even now, I've been with them for almost 2 years, and the experience has really been great. Having Consultwebs on board is really like having your own team of people that really care about what kind of business you're getting. I mean, practicing law can seem kind of lonely. You always are wondering, how am I going to get clients? How am I going to make payroll? But with Consultwebs, it's not just me worrying about having people come in the door. They're there as well. And they've been so responsive. Since I started with Consultwebs, I have increased the number of employees double at least. And since I started with Consultwebs, the revenue has tripled. So it's really been an incredible experience.
Go to consultwebs.com to learn more.
And now, for a lawsome interview.
Vanessa Ugatti dramatically shifts the thinking of accountants, lawyers, and consultants, enabling them to generate more revenue, have more time, and create more freedom by charging what they're really worth. This unique ability to bring out the best in people has evolved for her over many years of facing similar challenges, both professionally and personally, even questioning her own value. With over 10 years' experience, an international best-selling book out in the world, and an online presence that rightfully exudes expertise, it's only natural that Vanessa has found her way to the Lawsome podcast. Welcome to the show, Vanessa.
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction.
Can you talk about your own genesis as a consultant? How did you encapsulate your personal struggles into your business model?
I guess really, I used my struggles, particularly as I was overcoming them, and share them with my clients. I find that's a really powerful way of showing people that they're not alone. And if I can do it, they can. Because I had this challenge of charging really, really badly, really badly. I think also it came from the unconscious mind for me, which has been nudging me along and giving me information that I need. And it sounds a bit spooky saying that, but really that's the truth. It's been a very long journey and a process of unraveling wrong thinking And that does take some time to do, particularly in my case anyway. And I've actually just recently this weekend written a 2,000-word biographical article, partly to help me see how far I've come. And then I'm going to publish that as well. But I've just sent it to 2 or 3 close contacts to see what they think first before I do it, because it's the next step. Revealing all. Vanessa bears all. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think it's important to have a personal connection and say, look, I've been here. Because a lot of experts slide in with a bunch of information, but no context. And I think that's important. And I think it anchors the expertise you provide.
You know, I think that personal experience of it gives you heart and soul and understanding. And then people really connect with you because they see you as genuine rather than somebody who's just reading out of a book and telling people what to do when they either don't have the problem themselves or they're not actually dealing with it themselves. So
I think there's a bit of that heart that holds us back from asking for compensation or what we're worth. And so I was doing a little bit of research for this interview, and according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs who start businesses fail within the first 18 months. So 80% just crash and burn. And I know that the reasons are myriad. It's not just one thing, but I know personally a few small business owners, and there is a huge hesitancy to paying themselves first. You know, I think that in business college, you know, you teach people how to make money, but you don't teach them how to ask for it. And I'm just wondering, you deal with this specifically. Where does this reluctance to get paid come from?
Well, I think I think there's many different aspects to it, although some key ones. And I think in terms of lawyers, because we are talking to lawyers, aren't we?
Yes.
I can only speak for lawyers in the UK, but I'm imagining it's very similar in the States as well. Lawyers go to law school and they study law, and there's an awful lot for them to study. They don't spend an awful lot of time studying business or how to understand the way they think or how to manage people or any of that side of things. So first of all, there's potentially a lack of knowledge in what to do. And then secondly, there's false beliefs about money, your upbringing, the personality type you are, feeling sorry for people. You know, you were talking just a few minutes ago about heart. And if you're a person who's a very empathic person, somebody who likes helping people, and often people go into a particular profession because they want to help people. And that also is me. So because you want to help people, there's a part of you that says in your head, well, I can't possibly charge for that because I enjoy helping people. And part of it's unconscious. I mean, a large part of how we behave anyway is unconscious. So whatever those unconscious beliefs are, they then start manifesting. And people feel quite uncomfortable talking about money because they've got beliefs like money is the root of all evil. And they might have had something told to them when they were young about money doesn't go on trees or filthy lucre. There's all sorts of beliefs of that nature which have been drummed into all of us, really. And I don't think it's a British thing. I definitely think this is an international problem because I talk to people from different parts of the world and they're saying the same thing. So it's a human condition. So if you think about it, if we as a human being are feeling something that makes us feel uncomfortable, what do we do with that? We actually move away from it. So if somebody thinks, oh, I can't possibly charge that, that's far too much, they'll actually not do it. So they'll discount for that particular reason because it makes them feel better because they don't feel comfortable saying, oh, it's this amount of money. So if you think about the human being saying, right, I'm not going to do that because it's too uncomfortable, therefore I'll do this, they're actually damaging themselves, but they think they're doing themselves a favor. And they're also in a habit of behavior, a habit of thinking, a habit of behavior, which then just carries on. So if you think about it, our thoughts create our feelings, and our feelings create our actions, and our actions create our results, which then, of course, feed back into our thoughts again. So if you start with a positive thought, it's obvious you create a positive feeling, that you're likely to do a positive action, and then you're likely to get positive results. and that makes you feel positive again. But of course, if you start off with a negative thought, and of course, beliefs are just thoughts that we've repeated many times, then that makes us feel uncomfortable. That makes us feel negative. So then we'll get either the wrong action, which is, well, let's discount our fees, or we'll overservice the client because then we'll feel better, or worse still, no action at all. And that produces results that ultimately the business owner doesn't really want. All the time feeding back into them thoughts again, and it just becomes a habit, a spiral. And then, of course, it's a spiral downwards. And then they get to the point of thinking, well, this isn't working. And they start feeling overworked, tired, stressed. Resentful is something that people say to me, and even to the point of overwhelm. So it's not a great place to be. But it's all really started by beliefs people have about, well, I can't possibly charge this, or what will they think, or I'm trying to help these people, how can I charge this amount of money? It seems like a lot to me. A lot of them are irrational thoughts, really, that we have. And unfortunately, it isn't really the thought that's the problem. It's the fact that we buy into it and believe it and act on it that causes the problem in the end.
Do you think that's even exacerbated, particularly in the legal industry, because you're typically working with people who have a problem? They're in a bad situation, in a bad spot or whatever. That's going to creep into people's heads, like, oh, I can't, we need to do this and this. Well, I know they're in a bad spot. I can't really charge them for this, and it's only going to take me a little bit of time anyway. It makes it difficult to put things in a strictly business sense.
So you have to create those boundaries, because, I was a hopeless case, all right? A totally hopeless case, Paul, because I was completely unaware of how I was operating when I first started helping people. And I was very focused and motivated to help people. I loved it. It was my reason for being. But then when it came to discussing money, or discussing fees, or anything to do with the business side, I really was so uncomfortable. I didn't have a clue, and I'd just get it over with and say something quickly, and then sit there, feeling all this fear inside as to whether they were going to say no or not, because there was an absolute fear of rejection. So it's not even just about thinking about the other person's feelings. Very often we've got to reflect back and say, what is it that I'm feeling inside of me that's making me behave in this way? And it's really more about fearing that somebody's going to say no to us, and what will they think of us? So that fear of rejection is very, very strong. And yes, of course, lawyers are helping people who are in trouble, but I'm helping people who are in trouble. Lots of people doing a service, or giving a service, I should say, are helping people who may have a problem, or who have some kind of a problem. So we have to be willing to separate the two things out and say, okay, I really want to help this client. And there's no doubt in my mind that that's really, really important. But at the same time as helping this client, I must look after my business. And so I've got to balance the two things, because if you don't balance the two things, what happens is excessive helping the client. And if you could see me, I'm putting my hand up in the air, and yourself or the business further down means imbalance. And when we're not in balance, that creates all these other problems that I've already mentioned about being resentful and overworked and stressed and tired. And ultimately, that actually impacts on the quality of work people do for their clients anyway. So the other thing is really that when we're focused on thinking that it's all about what we're charging, we're not really focusing on what's the benefit to the client of what we're doing. So say, for example, somebody's getting a divorce. I mean, I know in this country, divorces are not something that people charge an awful lot for necessarily if it's a straightforward one, because they're looking to get the business of sorting out the finances. And obviously that's normally a bigger piece of work, and so they'll earn more money from that. So I try and get clients to focus on, okay, so when you solve the problem for your client, what would that mean to the client? What would be the benefit to them? They can get on with their life. They've got their finances sorted out. They've got their relationships sorted out. They've got their children sorted out. They've got stability back in their life. And they've got their life back. And when their life was in total turmoil, every day and every minute of every day was probably really uncomfortable and unpleasant. Wasn't it worth spending some money with somebody who does a really good job for you? And maybe it was expensive to get your life back. But they don't think about that. They just think about, oh, it's costing all this money and I can't possibly charge that and I better just discount. And very often people do that. They discount their fees. They don't even have the conversation with the client. So they don't know. Often they're making up in their own mind things that aren't necessarily true.
Interesting. So they're projecting some stuff there, kind of, you know, and instead of looking at it like saying, hey, I didn't get this person into this mess or situation. I can get them out. They need me. And when they're done, they're going to be in a better place. That's absolutely worth being well compensated for, you know?
Yes, indeed. And actually, I'm working with a family lawyer at the moment. That's probably why I use family law. And she's an extreme people pleaser, a very lovely person, been in business quite a long time. But she was really seriously having problems with charging effectively, and it was having impact on her life. So, you know, this is not a good place to be. And already we've started putting some processes in place whereby she manages things in a better way. So she's handling the whole payment side better, communicating better with the client, because quite often it's also because people don't have conversations about the business side up front at the very beginning and set the boundaries, if you like, set the scene for how you operate. And then later on down the line, the problems that they have with clients then get worse and worse and worse. So then they're actually distracted from doing their job, potentially, especially if they're working for themselves, by all this other admin stuff and financial stuff that's not been resolved. And that's then impacting on the quality of the work they do for their clients. And she actually said to me the other day, we put a very simple process in place for fixed fee meetings that she does. And she said she's had 4 of those fixed fee meetings since we did that, a very short time before. And she said she felt so much more relaxed and confident. She felt that she delivered better to her clients. And that was just one simple tweak of something that we did to help her be able to manage that better. The client also gains by it when the person providing the service is doing it in a way where they're more comfortable and relaxed and they're not worrying about all that side of things.
That's awesome. That's such an intangible benefit that once you have that handled. As a musician in college, one of the classes was managing and thinking about business as a musician. Oh my God, we weren't paying attention at all. But one of the key points was get paid first. Get the check first, because then you can focus on playing music rather than thinking that I have to really like pull it out and then hopefully they'll pay me at the end. But it is that same kind of mentality. Handle that so you can use all of your brain power to focus and deliver the service.
I know I've got a dreadful, dreadful sense of humor. I hope that your audience also have a good sense of humor, because when you were saying that, what popped in my mind was that's what prostitutes do.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not suggesting lawyers are prostitutes, or indeed I'm not one either. However, when you think about it, they're getting the business side of it out of the way, and it doesn't take any time at all, and then they're concentrating on delivering a service.
Oh my God.
I've never thought of that before until this moment. So you can bet your bottom dollar there'll be something going on LinkedIn. So look out for it.
Okay. I will like
blog post.
I will
blog
share.
Post coming in hot.
It was first heard on.
It's a great point, really, because speaking like from the client side, I've had to use a lawyer for business and stuff, and nobody wants to get an invoice from your attorney that's 6 pages long, detailing out every single phone call. If you didn't know, I mean, I knew, but I'm saying like if you didn't know. So using that example as of your family law client who's a people person. I could see there could be a gray area, where she'd be like, well, this client called me and we were talking about this and that, but it wasn't really related to her case, so I can't really charge her. Like all of that just gets taken off the table. Like if you just explain everything right up front, you don't have to worry about it. There's no question about that. I think that's a really great point.
Getting people to do that, though, because often people don't. They don't think about it. They'll respond to something. It's an automatic pattern. They've always done this, and then later on down the line, it's this is the situation I'm in. Now, there's something I have to reveal to you as well, is that there are certain personality types who've got the biggest challenge with this, that I've identified key characteristics, if you like. And I can tell you time and time again when I talk to people, if I say these characteristics, pretty well everybody that comes to me and I speak to, they've all got it going on. So, and of course, there were also characteristics that I have, stroke had, or have overcome and managed.
Mm-hmm.
Because the other thing is that I also reassure people is that if they're working with me, is that I don't turn people into monsters, because I don't want to change the nice aspects of my clients in how they operate with their clients, because that's part of their success in being able to actually be empathic and care about them. This is a great quality to have. So if you're one of those people who will be listening to this and you're a person who loves to help your clients, this is a good quality. So I'm not saying it's not. It's just about the balance of it. So the typical personality types are usually very conscientious people, which is a positive. They're also usually very good at what they do, and sometimes better than the average person, but they just don't really realize it. They're often and definitely people pleasers, and they've been used to being a people pleaser most of their life. And it's not just in their work that they're people pleasing, it's every aspect of their life. They're often quite sensitive people, and sometimes control freaks as well. But those key things of conscientious, perfectionist, very good at what they do, and people-pleasing and sensitive, I see that time and time again. That's the challenge that they've got, because people will think, well, that's the way I am. And so they don't think they can change, or they don't want to because they're scared of becoming something at the other end of the spectrum. If you see it as a spectrum, though, like a line, at one end you've got, extreme people-pleasing perfectionists. The other end you've got arrogant, hard-nosed people who don't give a damn about anything, will charge you with absolutely no problem, probably rip you off.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle there, along that line, somewhere in the middle, there's a balance between those. And the balance is create value for your clients, charge effectively.
So do you have like phrases or templates or something that people can use to help them advocate for themselves, just to help them get the feel of it? Or do you like any tips to encourage people to break out of that mindset and put on the business hat, if you will?
Actually, funnily enough, I talk about business. I talk about having hats and wearing different hats. And one of them, of course, is putting a business hat on. And then you can be putting a hat on for I'm the lawyer now, or I'm doing this now, whatever it is you're doing. So you've got different hats on. I haven't actually got many things written down, because when I'm working with clients, I tend to just come out with stuff. It made me think I must get some stuff written down. Although having said that, I do post a lot on LinkedIn and write articles and things, so there's probably some good stuff in there. However, having said that, if you just give people cold a list of phrases and things that they can come out with, if it's not in context and they don't have the confidence to deliver, because that's 50% of it, is actually being able to deliver it in a way that you feel confident and therefore it's accepted by the client, then it doesn't necessarily have a huge amount of meaning. But there is one short phrase, which I recently was sharing with a client, and I probably even posted about this as well, which you can say when somebody says it's too expensive, you can reply, compared with what? I was just having a session with a client just before we came on to this interview, and he used it, just having learned it, he used it with a prospect. And he said it was great because it opened up a whole discussion. And then you start finding out what's going on and how people are thinking and what their objections might be. And it turned out to be really nothing that they'd really thought about. Or it could be that they're comparing apples and pears. So quite often people are looking to get, great service, but then they'll compare you with somebody down the road who's offering a really bad service. I don't know the names of cars in the States, but you can probably tell me. What's the top end range of a car?
Lexus.
And what's the bottom end?
I don't know, Kia.
Kia and Lexus. So, if you went to a Lexus dealer, you wouldn't expect to get that car for a Kia price, would you? With services, very often that's what's going on. People are looking for I'd say a Rolls-Royce service, but only paying a Kia price. So they're not comparing like with like. And so when you ask that question of compared with what, because it's an open question, you're getting people to then, or your prospects to then actually look inside themselves and say, well, why do I say that? And you can then have a discussion. And when you have a discussion, then you're in a position to be able to deal with any objections and things they've had. And you've got much more chance of being able to get them over the line, if you like, than if you just curl up and shrivel up when they say it's too expensive and go, oh, okay, goodbye.
Right. Well, and then
Right.
also that you can then wear the hat that you're most comfortable with, which is the lawyer hat or your service hat. So you can bring it back to a part where you're comfortable in saying, look, this is the strengths, this is the benefit. So in your book, you have a proprietary formula, UV plus CV plus CD equals CW. I'm excited. I am horrible at math. So I'm hoping that there's no integers or anything like that. But can you explain how that came about?
I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. So, I was starting this process of needing to have a niche, and I got signed up in a marketing program for coaches. And they said to me, you've got to have a niche and ask some questions. And I wrote down some answers. And amongst the answers came the subject of value or worth. And at the time, I had absolutely no idea where that had come from. So, but they said, that's very marketable. So I said, well, you're the experts. I'll trust what you're saying and I'll start looking into the subject. And this is exactly what happened. This is the true story. So I started doing that. I started going networking and talking to people and asking them about this problem of charging and whether people have this problem. And very quickly, I discovered that undercharging, discounting for no reason and over-servicing clients was really commonplace, not just amongst lawyers, but amongst business people in general, particularly people selling services. And so I started looking at clients that I'd been working with, and I discovered I'd already been helping them on the subject. I just hadn't realized it. And then at that point, I turned the spotlight on myself and discovered the most revolting situation, and that I was worse than anybody else I knew. I was completely clueless. So at that point, I realized that, my subconscious mind knew exactly why I had chosen this niche, because I needed to learn it for myself, first of all. So then one night I was in bed, and it was, when you're half awake and half asleep, that quite nice sort of phase that you can be in. That's when your unconscious mind is very open and you're very relaxed. And this formula actually appeared in my mind when I was in this semi-awake state. And it was when I saw it, perceived it, or however you say it, I've never quite come up with the right verb. I thought, that's it, because I knew what it meant and I knew it was correct. And all it means is understanding your value plus communicating your value plus comfortable discussing fees equals charging what you're worth. Really simple. But, everything is actually simple, but we as human beings make everything complicated.
If people could just take one thing away from true worth, what would it be?
You are worth it. I'll give you two things. And think before you speak, because the biggest problem that we have is that we react from our unconscious mind, because that's how we've always done it. So whatever we do, everything that we've learned is stored in the unconscious mind. It's not stored in the conscious mind. And so your expertise as a musician, or mine as a coach, or a lawyer's as a lawyer, is stored there. So everything is stored there. So all our beliefs, everything we've ever seen, heard, touched, tasted, and smelled, everything's stored in the unconscious mind or the subconscious mind. And so when we react to a situation, we're reacting from that content in the unconscious mind, which hasn't been looked at and by the conscious mind and said yes or no. So that's why I say think before you speak, because if you go with your automatic reaction and you've been used to undervaluing yourself, then you're going to get a result that you don't want. And although the formula is simple, it's not easy, because your value is also held, or your expertise is held in your unconscious mind. So it's become unconscious. The longer you've been doing something, the more unconscious it is. So to put it into your terminology in terms of a musician, say you see a concert pianist, a really professional, amazing concert pianist, when they play the piano, it looks so easy. And it probably is, actually, after all the amount of years that person has been practicing. But they had to do an awful lot to get to that point of this seamless, easy playing, running their fingers up and down the piano and making this music. And it's the same with a lawyer. They had to put a lot of effort and time into studying, learning, putting it into practice. But once they're good at it, a lot of times they can answer people quite quickly and easily, thus devaluing it, and devaluing it to themselves and also to their clients. So that the fundamental thing is actually being able to go back and say, okay, in order for me to be able to do what I do, what did I have to go through in order to get here? And also then once you understand that, and then you can start thinking, well, what's the value to the client of what I'm doing? But lawyers don't think like that, because you mentioned earlier on that when they're billing, they'll bill all the itemize all the things that they've done, which are all the features of the work. And for most people, they're not really interested. They're interested in the benefits or the result of what they're going to get, the solution to their problem.
Right.
And so they think in features, so they don't think in benefits. And features are boring for most of us. I'm not interested.
Great. That's awesome.
It's actually thinking about what's the benefit. So think before you speak, know you're worth it, and think about what the benefit is to the client. Does that answer the question?
Yes, and it's brilliant. I mean, coming from the marketing standpoint, advertising standpoint, all of that stuff I think is transferable. So this is advice that just doesn't go to the heart of charging. I think it goes to the heart of who you are and how you present yourself to the world.
Absolutely. It's huge. To be honest with you, it's taken me a long time to even understand it myself. And also, more recently, I did understand that understanding your value is not just for people who are selling themselves. So if you take a law firm, they've got their fee earners, then they've got their support staff. They might be legal assistants or secretaries or whatever. So I say that everybody in the firm has a value because everybody has a part to play. And if you can help your staff understand their value in the workplace, regardless of whether they're charging or not, and they feel that they have a value, then their performance will go up, because it can only do that, because they'll feel more motivated. They'll feel valued in themselves, and then other people valuing them too. So understanding your value is fundamental to all of us as a human being. Because if we don't feel we have value, then our self-worth is low. And if our self-worth is low, we don't function properly.
So coming back to the idea of value, is there something to giving stuff away to draw prospects in? It's not all about charging the right prices. What's your thoughts on giving things away?
There's not a problem with that. I think it's back to the whole thing of conscious versus unconscious. So if somebody's in an unconscious habit of constantly over-servicing clients, constantly discounting their fees because of what the voice in the head says to them, that's not going to work, because that's just going to cause them a lot of problems. If somebody consciously chooses to use a certain technique or a tool, and we have to as coaches. I've got my little book that's free. I've got a report that's free. There's a free webinar that's on my website. I'll give people a free meeting, a free strategy session. There's all sorts of things that they get for nothing, because you're moving them along to saying, yes, actually, I want to work with you. Mm-hmm. But they're consciously given. And you can also because if you're running your own business, for example, as a lawyer, or even within the firm, depending on what, how much responsibility you're given, right, you can make decisions as you go along and not necessarily do exactly the same thing for everybody. I know some lawyers do pro bono work. That's their choice to do that. If they're doing it to the detriment of their business, then I would say that's crazy. But if they're choosing one particular thing they want to do, at any particular time, because it really does something for their heart and soul, then I would not say no to that. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing. But that's conscious decision making. Sometimes people say, well, it's a sprat to catch a mackerel, so I'll do that for that, and then I'll get a bigger job. That's not necessarily true, because people might think, well, if that's what you're charging now, they expect you to continue charging like that. But you might want to give a little bit of advice. That's fair enough. A little bit of advice so you're demonstrating that you have a value. And I always say, but make sure people understand that's what you're doing. So you're almost saying, here's an answer so-and-so. That's how helpful is that to you? So you're reminding them that what you've done actually has a value, that it is helpful. So they're not just skirting over it and then forgetting about it. And I do this quite a bit in sessions when I'm working with clients, is actually say, look at the value of what we've done so far. because this is what you've got to remind them, because people forget very, very quickly where they were and how far they've come. So, even as a lawyer, I don't see why you can't do that at the end. Say, well, look, this is what we've achieved for you. What an amazing result we've got. You can always say we, so it doesn't sound like you're being big-headed. We've got, haven't we? Look at that. And they go, yeah, this is fantastic. And then you can say, well, who do you know who might need my services or something of that nature? So yes, or you can give away stuff, no problem. Give away value, give away some of your time as a means of getting people more involved or wanting to work with you. But do it everything from a conscious perspective. Choose to do it rather than allow it to be happening automatically from the unconscious mind. Is that a good enough answer?
Yeah, no, I think it was beautiful. It's just so deep. I thought it would just be about money. What's the future bringing? Is there a chance that newer generations are handling the transaction of money differently? Does technology help with that awkwardness? PayPaling, Venmo, Square, Cash, just everything's kind of floating. It's invisible. What's the future bringing?
That's a challenging one. I think it depends on, whether people are actually having conversations with clients still or prospects still, or is everything going to be automated and done in a faceless way? And I just can't see that, because I think you're still going to have conversations with your clients and your prospects to discuss fees. Otherwise, who are they getting to do the work for them? I mean, obviously you can go online and you can get legal services done, but are you getting the same level of service as you would if you went to somebody and you actually had a relationship with them and they really actually cared about you? That's what I don't know. So whilst those tools might help, do you not still have to have those conversations? And isn't it the conversations where the problem lies?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And then where are you going to engender that trust? I mean, it's not going to be through a text message. It's going to be a handshake or kind of a helpful article or, it's going to be those warmer moments.
Yeah, I actually think in some respects, and people talk about in this country about the millennials and, how confident they are, but I don't think that's necessarily the case with everybody. And they might fall flat on their face, because if you're too far the other way, too confident, you might then have some experiences where people are saying, well, no, that's too expensive. And they won't have the tools to handle it, because they might handle it in an arrogant way rather than in the right way, and then start losing business. Then that will impact on their confidence. And then they'll realize they don't have the skills. I think it's quite concerning. I don't know in the States, but I'm imagining it's probably similar to here. But the way we communicate now has changed so much in my lifetime, because I'm not a youngster anymore, and that there's so much texting going on and chat rooms and so on that people can't actually write properly anymore, let alone know how to formulate intelligent conversations. Maybe that's not the case with lawyers, because obviously they're trained to be lawyers, so perhaps they can do that. But I don't necessarily think it will be easier. I think they can overcome the payment side might be easier, but not the discussion up front side. I think that still remains a challenge for people, unless law schools start bringing people in to teach them how to do that.
That's really, really well said. Yeah, because I think that people are looking towards social media as a replacement, maybe, for networking.
Social media can start the relationship off, but then, anybody who's worth their salt in LinkedIn training, as an example, because I don't know much about the other social medias, I'm more into LinkedIn, will say to you that, get people off LinkedIn as soon as you can.
Yeah.
You want to get them into a conversation.
That's what Rachel said. Yeah, Rachel Toms. We got you through her.
Well, yes, because I saw her posting and I contacted you because I saw that she posted about it, and I thought, oh, that sounds like fun. Let's go for that. The rules that we all grew up with of etiquette and being a human being, as much as things might change and youngsters aren't so bothered about things, in reality, they do remain. And, being able to look at somebody in the eyes and talk to them and listen to their voice and how they come across, you can't get that from sending an email or texting somebody. Those old things do remain. And I think maybe the youngsters have lost out, really, because they haven't necessarily had the grounding that, say, somebody like me had. I mean, I remember my father teaching me to shake hands, which, in the proper way, in a very business-like manner, because he was a businessman, he was in business. And he taught me, even as a girl, going back to all those years ago, because he could see how important that was. I got taught things of that nature, how to, introduce myself properly, how to interact with people, how to shake hands professionally. And I've got quite small hands. And over the years, people have commented on my firm handshake. And I said, well, I really can't bear a limp lettuce leaf, and nobody can.
and if that lettuce leaf is coming through Twitter or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's still limp.
In this last session with a client just now, I was saying about they've had some tricky things going on, which is great because it's all part of the learning. But go back to the client and make sure that understand that everything that you do when you're in inverted commas selling is for the benefit of the client. Everything. So when you go in with the mindset of, I'm trying to get the sale, and what will they think, and will they say my prices are too high, and I'm putting all these boundaries in place. No, you're doing it to make sure that the service that you give your clients will be a good one and they're fully informed. And if you go in with that sort of attitude, then you're also willing to walk away if the client isn't the right client, or they don't want to pay you, or they're really just so price focused and nothing else. Then you can say, well, okay, that's fine. I'm happy. I've given you my price. This is what it is. And if that doesn't suit, then, I'm going to say, well, please feel free to go elsewhere. And sometimes reverse psychology works as well. So we have to get into a place of feeling confident in ourselves, very clear in our communication, and very happy and wanting to serve the client, but not to the point of being detrimental to ourselves.
That's wonderfully put. Wrapping it up, how can people learn more about you, Vanessa?
Well, I've got a website, of course, which is www.thetrueworthexpert.com. I'm on LinkedIn, and I don't think there's many Vanessa Ugattis. In fact, I don't know that I've found another one. If you just go into LinkedIn and look up Vanessa Ugatti, you'll find me. And of course, you can access a copy of my book either via the website or via Amazon, or indeed get in touch with me via email, vanessa@thetrueworthexpert.com. You can get me through Skype as well.
Cool.
Excellent.
I love talking to people. Do contact me. I'm very happy to talk to you. And I'd love to have some American clients. I really would.
10 questions we ask everyone.
Here we go, Vanessa, with the cleverly titled 10 questions we ask everyone.
Right.
Number 1. What was the last book you read?
Oh, I'm in the process of reading one. It's about assertive communication, but I couldn't tell you the title.
All right. Number 2, what is your best habit?
Meditating every day.
Number 3, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, or none of the above?
No, I'm a LinkedIn girl, really. I am on Facebook, but I'm a LinkedIn girl, really.
Yeah. Okay. Number 4, coffee or tea?
Neither.
Really?
Whoa.
Wow, that's the first time someone's ever said that.
What?
Water. Water is my favorite drink.
Number 5, what is your favorite place?
Well, I love France because I'm French speaking. So can I say France?
Absolutely. There are no wrong answers here.
Yep.
Number 6, is Keanu Reeves a good actor?
I don't think so.
All right. Number 7, what was your first job?
I was a bilingual PA.
Number 8, what's a skill you have outside of your current of your current consulting that you incorporate into your work?
Nothing's coming to mind because I think a lot of the skills that I use in what I do are an amalgamation of years and years and years of doing different things.
Definitely. Yeah,
totally. I get that.
Number 9, what sites, blogs, or newsletters do you regularly check in with?
Nothing regular. LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay. And we've made it to the end. Number 10, after a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
So I know this sounds a bit not like it's relaxing. I love to do my spin class and my circuits class over the weekend, and then also get out into the fresh air if the weather's decent. At the moment we've had sun today, but it's been very chilly, and I went out, wrapped up and put a blanket around, took a blanket with me, would you believe? so I could sit on a bench and look at the view.
For show notes, links, and info, go to www.consultwebs.com/LawsonPodcast. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawson.